Hello.
Hello.
We want to start right off the bat with a little preamble slash disclaimer. This is a podcast about recovery, ran by two comedians in recovery. That's it. Everything we say is based on our personal recovery journey.
And no matter where you are in your personal recovery journey, whether you're actively engaging in your addiction or 4 years in, you are welcome to listen.
But that being said, we're not trained to handle a crisis. We're not trained to handle anything, honestly.
If you can't tell, this podcast is pretty hard to manage for us.
But if you are in a crisis, check out the show notes for some trusted resources that may help you and keep fighting the good fight.
Axios.
And now for the show.
Functioning.
Examples of functioning. Navigational sensors aren't functioning. Glad to see you still fully functioning.
That's what I was telling people. I was telling people that what Trump is trying to do and what the forces that be are trying to do is southern fry the rest of the country. And they're trying to make the rest of the country exactly like the South has been for a long time. So we've been living in this hellscape our entire lives. Whereas a lot of people are like, this is all new to us. And we're just like, nah, this is just par for the course.
Is that why it's so familiar? It's really not, I don't know. I'm not having any like cultural whiplash or anything. I'm just going, this is what it is. Why is everybody freaking
women
out?
Don't deserve the rights. Of course, yeah, they've always thought that. And people are like, this is ridiculous. And you're like, no, I guess to me, it's different in the other side. It's like when I moved to Chicago and I learned about city colleges. And I was like, the what?
When I moved to Albuquerque, I went on a date with a girl when I first got out here, and I asked her, like, where is your mountain with your Confederate generals? Do y'all have Confederate generals that you imprinted on a geological structure out here? Is that what the petroglyphs are?
One of my favorite things about moving to Chicago was that not all the ghosts were Confederates. Like
that's super weird, right? Like, why would ghosts stick around if they don't? Like, Confederate ghosts make sense because you have unfinished business. What are y'all still doing here?
It's sometimes the ghosts here are just like a nice immigrant couple from like Czechoslovakia that died in a boat, like some like cool Frenchman who was part of like the shipping industry in Michigan. It's not always rooted in like was killed by Sherman. Or like some widow that went off, whose husband went off to war, and she's waiting for him to come back. It's like there's some actual diversity in the ghost here,
The ghosts here are pretty malevolent, which I think makes sense because New Mexico has such a weird history of violence and capitalism and stuff. So, I don't know. The ghost stories that I've heard from people around Albuquerque are, I don't know of any, like, I don't know what the ethnicity or diversity of the ghosts is, but I saw a cat. Talking
about ghosts, you saw a cat.
But anyway, yeah, there's like the ghosts here basically like just don't bother them and they won't bother you.
Oh, really? Just chill ghosts.
They're chill unless you bother them. In which case, you kind of brought this on yourself.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. That is very Albuquerque, by the way. Like, the Pequeño people are very much like, maybe they do this in Chicago, but in New York, when I rode the subway to work and stuff, especially in the morning, there would be people who were playing loud music from their either iPhone, or they would have speakers.
Yeah,
and
they do that.
It just drives you crazy. And then, you find out that a lot of these people are just basically like psychopaths who are trying to they're trying to instigate a fight because the city has driven them crazy. There is that element here where people just their like aesthetic is trying to instigate some level of aggression against them so that they can work off some steam. Which is it's just interesting that I don't know why that is, because I'm not from the culture or anything, but that's an element here, which is interesting.
Are you saying the ghosts are not like that or are like that?
I'm saying that the people are like that.
The people are like that, but when they die, they learn to just be chill and live and let die.
I think that that's what I'm saying. Like the people live in.
I think that's a song.
When the people die, and I guess if they choose to become ghosts, then there's still.
I didn't know you got a choice. You get a choice.
Well, look, the metaphysics of ghosts could be an entire different podcast that we could get into, where you're like, where you focus energy so much so that even when your corporal body leaves a room, whether or not you die or not, you could like have such an intense emotion in one room and then leave, and then somehow that kind of the remnant of that emotion remains. Like for people who grow up with, abusive parents and stuff, that I think that part of them remains kind of in the atmosphere of the house,
like an emotional imprinting kind of thing.
Yeah,
that's like why people burn sage and stuff, right?
Yes,
I think. I don't know.
I haven't, I think there's multiple reasons, but yeah, like smudging, I think that has to do with, kind of washing the emotional imprinting of a room. So that can be so crystallized, so focused that a kind of apparition appears out of that emotional imprinting, which is what we could technically call a ghost.
Wow, that's great. You looked off really.
I don't know. I got a window open. I'm just kind of. I sat down in the bed for this one.
You just got lost in thought there as you thought about the ghosts of your life.
Well, no, I legitimately, I looked off and I thought, is this good? Is this a good conversation? Should I be saying any of this stuff?
What do you mean? Is it bad? I mean, I think it goes into the theme of the subject of this podcast, which is about repatterning, which is hard to say, which is really, in a way, about smudging the rooms in your head and getting rid of the emotional trauma and the ghosts that live there by implementing new practices, even in thought, physically, and through your body. That's what we wanted to talk about today, and I think this is a great transition. I personally don't believe in ghosts, but I'm not going to judge you if you do, vocally. But there is a room in my head where I'm going to put you in if you do. I think that's not just for you, Tom. That's for everyone that's listening.
I know. I can feel that it's a royal judgment of all of the people that may or may not believe in ghosts. I think the Orthodox believe that it's 40 days where your soul, when you die, your soul stays on the earth, remains kind of in this kind of liminal space for 40 days. I might be getting that wrong, but it's some amount of time.
It's like a trial period.
It's like a trial period where you can't repent or anything, so you know where you're going to go, but you're kind of led through your life during this period, and you can go, I guess, wherever or whatever. So a lot of different things can happen during that period. But it's very important for after, someone dies, for people to pray for their soul in that period, because it could do something. It could help. But we're not the only religion that believes in a period between death and the next stage.
I like the idea of a trial period. Or is it more like I like that. It's like you can try out death. Did you ever read What Dreams May Come by Richard Matheson? It was made in a movie with
Oh, I
Robin
love
Williams.
Richard Matheson.
Yeah, he wrote
I Am Legend.
I Am Legend, which is nothing like the book or like the movie.
That book, I've read that book like 10 times. It's so
Yeah,
good.
he's great. He's great. So in the 70s, he did a bunch of research with like all sorts of different religious people and new agey people and like people who have died and came back and asked them what they've seen. And he wrote What Dreams May Come, which became like that 90s blockbuster with Robin Williams. It was like pretty incredible, honestly. It's got Cuba Gooding Jr. in it.
Wow,
And,
I've never heard of this.
Oh yeah, Robin Williams goes through hell, and it's basically a retelling of Dante. The book is nothing like that. What Dreams May Come, the movie, is basically Dante's Inferno, but with Robin Williams. But in the book, he talks about this trial period where you can, where you're sort of like, kind of like given a tour. It's like a campus tour of heaven and hell and the architecture of the afterlife, and your own life. And he talks about this like gold thread that connects you to your body that gets snipped after like a certain amount of time, and like all of this kind of stuff.
Yeah, that sounds very familiar to this, or very similar to this rather. That's cool. I'll have to check that out. Before we get into repatterning, talking about repatterning, I don't know, like maybe this isn't a total huge digression, but I've been just thinking about this today, and maybe we can find a way to incorporate it. Otherwise, forget about this.
We'll
yeah, we can cut it out.
We'll cut it out. We're not
that we cut anything really, but I was thinking about how I think this actually could be a little bit like repatterning. So I've been thinking about how my brain works in terms of, and I think that this has to do with how your brain works probably because of stand-up, but I also think that it has a lot to do with the culture at large of how people are starting to think in terms of, okay, my life is something that I can capitalize on, or something like events in my life I can turn into content right away, or like I'm farming my life for jokes, stories,
podcasts.
But there's this, like, I think that there's a relatively new pattern of thinking where it's in everybody's kind of surrounding, where we're constantly kind of branding and or curating an appearance, a persona. We're always in this like performative space. And it's something that I've been thinking about just because it's exhausting. There's no need for that. And wanting to try to shift out of that kind of mentality is difficult because I still have that stand-up brain where I'm like, but I have to get attention right now. Everybody has to look at me and laugh at me. But that's not true. And I honestly, I'd rather not have anybody look at me, because, then I can actually live my life.
Yeah. I mean, isn't that just a reaction though to that stand-up brain to just go the other way and like, sulk? I don't know, fall back into the shadows of the bar and not and see it, watch life from afar instead of participating in it. You want that middle space.
No, I want to live life without having to feel the need to get on stage and tell people about what I just did in my life.
I'm actually very much with you in this. Ever since the election, especially, but like a lot of stuff has been coming up ever since I got my diagnosis with hypomania, and I've been taking lamotrigine, it has been just kicking up the dust of my life. And a lot of it has, so like when I first got sober, I was like, holy shit, everything is a performance. I don't even know how to operate. I don't even, who is Jody without the performance?
Yeah.
And then I got really tired of performing and I ended up just getting really bad anxiety. It turns out alcohol is great for anxiety. And so I didn't know how to like, do my job, which a lot of my job is the performance. Because believe it or not, advertisers are extremely shallow. And so are most people in the corporate world. And we got to like put on the razzmatazz to sell the idea. And I had to learn how to do that without this like alcoholic space and like within the framework of who I was. And that was super duper hard. And then now that I didn't start taking these pills until like a little over a month ago, like 6 weeks ago. And I am like super sensitive to the performance yet again and not wanting to do it, but also other people's performance where I like see right through it. And I'm just like, why are you giving me the circus, man? Like, why don't you just be real with me? I can like hear it in people's voices and I'm constantly like searching for like the real meaning of what they're saying because I'm just so tired of the entire aspect of this performance. I can't even watch fiction anymore. Because did you know that acting is just lying? Did you know that? And like the TV shows are just a bunch of people making a facsimile of an emotion to make me feel a real emotion, which is just what liars do.
Well,
there's no real facts in it.
And you know this too because you've been on like shooting locations and stuff where I used to do audio work on shoots, and once you see an actor, whatever, they like run through a scene 10 times to get like the perfect take or whatever. It does kind of sour you on watching fiction because I'm like watching it. I'm going, I wonder what take this is. I wonder what like this doesn't feel genuine. Like this feels so forced or fake or inauthentic. I just can't like you said, it's like I can't allow it's like watching a facsimile, a simulation of emotion that it feels gross.
Yeah. Like, why am I cheering for the writers of Rohan? This is fake. They're not real people. There are real people who did stuff like this that I don't even know about. And yet I'm over here concerned about the writers of Rohan, you know?
Yeah.
Like I don't care about Gandalf the Grey becoming Gandalf the White anymore when I myself am becoming gray and white. Like reality is happening all around me. And I can't deal with it. It's kind of a problem. It's caused like it's caused some rifts in my relationships because people be like, oh yeah, did you catch the episode of blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, I don't care. I can't watch this. Sometimes I'm hanging out with Liz and I'm just like, I'm just like, can we watch a documentary about like a murder or something? Cause at least there's a little bit of reality in that, even though they really ham up like the if it bleeds, it leads kind of aspect of the storytelling. But still, at least it's like rooted in reality. And it's not like just something that a writer like myself put on paper to make you feel sad for my own like artistic purpose. What is that?
Right. No,
why have I dedicated my life to this bullshit?
That's why I don't listen to music anymore. Like I don't want to be.
Okay, I disagree with.
I just like you. Okay,
No. I'm gonna push back on this. Like for instance, like there are 8 orbitals of electrons around an atom, and they don't really orbit. They're not particles. They resonate at different frequencies, just like there's an octave in a cleft. And so music is actually what reality is, and to
Okay.
listen to it without
Yes.
the words is not playing into the lie.
Okay. Hear me out. I'm not saying that, like, when I'm in the car, if I'm not talking to myself, I'll be listening to, like, I'll listen to chanting. You know, I'm not like totally shut out from the world. I'll listen to
Okay.
chanting music.
If you drove without music, I would just end this podcast right now. Because
I mean, I do generally, I'll put on music and then immediately I'll go, I'm good. I don't need it. And I'll drive in silence mostly.
that sounds psychopathic to me.
It's not. No, I don't want to be
sounds like-
manipulated. Like, I know I'm being manipulated when I listen to kind of this more mainstream music, and I know what it's doing. I did magic for enough time that I know that music is a perfect way to embed information and get and manipulate my mind.
Well, yeah, we do that in
You know?
advertising. Bada,
Yeah.
yeah. Like,
So,
we do it-
you know, I'm keeping myself guarded, you know?
I know that you don't want to get in the zone, auto zone. Like, I know that music has like that little earworm that can convince people to do things that they don't want to do.
But this is about the repatterning. Like, you know, you gotta like totally empty out from all, like, shut out all the noise that's coming in, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. But sometimes, you know, if you listen to too much, if you're surrounded by too much silence, then you're going to ask yourself, oh, why am I not listening to music? You know?
I've never thought that.
Never
I haven't
thought
thought.
that, huh?
I'll think, like, if I do think that again, like, I'll turn on music for a second and I'll go, I'm good, and I'll turn it off and I'll go back to silence.
What do you do if you have a structured settlement and you need help now?
I'll call JG Wentworth. I have the phone number in my head.
Yeah.
It's so funny. You know, it's funny that you mentioned that. 2 times now, I've sung that to Marcy, just apropos of nothing. I'll go like, "Have you heard this song?" And I've done all the versions. Like, I just
the opera version. My
the
favorite
opera version,
one where you
the
just had
bus stop
people-
version, or the I don't know what the other,
yeah, when
like,
they're at the bus. Yeah.
yeah.
My favorite is the one before that where he had a bunch of people just stick their head out the window and go, "It's my money and I need it now."
That one's like hard to sell because it's not music related, but
Yeah.
that is the one that I like. Haven't you seen this one? And you get like kind of upset. You haven't seen the JJ. He's like outside everybody's outside the window. You haven't seen that?
Has she seen it?
No, that's why I had to sing all the versions, and I had to do all of the, like, I made her stand outside and I raised the window up and I, like,
Well, I'm sure she
got
had
out.
better things to do in the middle of the day than watch TV like we did. Like, I'm sure she didn't spend most of her like
She did, yeah. She doesn't
on a
have.
Tuesday like nursing a Wednesday hangover, watching fucking reruns of whatever.
Yeah, you're like sprawled out on the bed. You can't get up, and you're just getting absolutely injected by JG Wentworth commercials. She has had. I think she said she's gotten drunk like twice.
Oh no.
So I think that tells me why she hasn't really ever crawled across a JG Wentworth commercial.
That's wild.
I know. That's why I had to do it for her.
You know, one thing about though that to bring this back to repatterning is one thing that is good about that is letting go of those practices. Because like now, I would never watch TV. This is going to go up on YouTube. So if you walk away and I'm still talking, it's going to weird people out.
It's okay. I'll be back. I'm in the room.
Bring
I'm
your computer
listening.
with you.
No,
Show
I
everyone your
can't.
house.
It's all plugged in. I'm listening. I got the sound turned up. I gotta walk away. No one's
Where are you
watching this
going?
on YouTube.
Where are you going?
I'm
Yeah,
gonna
they
go
are.
pee.
We had two. You're going to go pee?
Yes. I thought I did. Look, I thought I got it all out before we started, and like minute 20 comes in. I'm like, what is this all about? So, okay.
Okay.
So
I'm just, you know what I'll do is I'll just do I'll give you like a 3-minute pee break.
you were saying,
You're back.
I'm back.
I don't remember what I was saying.
You were saying, oh, well, I vaguely like you just
Repattering.
repatterning in television is what you were talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think one thing that I used to do is I used television as a comfort and as a means of disassociation. And it used to drive me nuts. I hated it. I learned it from my parents. I remember watching my family just sort of like slack jaw watch TV when I was a kid and being like, there is more to life. But then I fell into it. And I think when I was drinking, especially really heavily, I did nothing but watch The Office.
Whoa.
I probably watched The Office countless times, and then like after I got sober, there are like all of these articles that other people have been doing it with The Office because it's like this comfort show,
Huh.
and eventually I had to stop, and I had to start like actually practicing not falling into these disassociative states with The Office. And I think the algorithm plays on that, which is what we're talking about, right? The algorithm that is our life, that is the thing that the ad algorithm and the Spotify and YouTube and Netflix algorithm, these things that track our habits, they feed us what we want so that we can fall back into these comfortable routines. And that's how patterns are reinforced. But first, I want to start out how patterns start. And usually they start in childhood, usually out of fear, usually out of like a disruption. I've been reading this article by this Chicago neurologist named Stephanie Fay.
Cool.
And she talks about how attachment is part of our neurophysiological operating system. That sounds cool, right? There's a lot of syllables in that. But essentially what she's saying is it's like you attach to what you learn. And then that pattern kind of, it happens and then it sort of gets reinforced in childhood. And then after childhood, you have to do life. And so it gets kind of like tucked away as you're like taking on life. And then that's where the hard part comes in, because then you just start relying on these patterns to take on life, and they build up on themselves. And so it's important to, through, therapy and through other means, to try to find those patterns and those roots. And like we were saying in the last podcast, practice a new way, practice like a new form of it, like turning off The Office. And then I ended up watching Community for a super long time, but it was different. And now I don't really watch TV that much. Over the summer, I canceled all of my subscription services because I was just like, fiction is a lie. And I also stopped listening to music on my commutes because I just wanted to listen to the world around me, not while I'm driving. That's the difference. But like if I'm on the train or something, if you don't have your headphones on the train, you're the hero of the train. When something is going down, you're the only one that hears it. And so you have to let everyone else know that there's something going down on the train. And it's kind of nice. It gives you that break, but it kind of has opened me up to the world and brought more awareness to my life. I mean, I get to hear little conversations that are happening. I get to hear different accents, different languages. And I'm just more, my own internal thoughts are more accessible when I'm not falling into these dissociative states that I've learned. But that took a practice. It took like actually mindfully being like, I'm not going to wear my headphones. Truthfully, it started because I lost my headphones and I couldn't afford to buy any new ones. And then after I did buy some, I was like, you know what? I kind of like this. And then I kept doing it. So I was forced into the practice. But these things are possible. And it's like actually like neurologically proven, right? Like repatterning is something that they use in a lot of these sort of like miracle kind of diagnoses where someone is told they won't be able to use their arm ever again, but then they are using like small practices every day, they're able to start gaining more and more mobility to that arm. Or like stroke victims with like cognitiveness, like cognitive word. I don't know if I just had a stroke. I don't know what word I'm trying to use, but like they've been able to like recover with these like small practices that sort of like find ways, like neurological ways around where these old patterns are. You know what I mean? It's like when you see a path, like you see a sidewalk, but then someone else, a bunch of other people had chosen a different path, and that path starts to wear down instead of them using the sidewalk. It's possible to do that to your brain.
And it's really, by the way, Marcy did that she lost her scent when she got COVID, and it took her months, but she like got her scent back by training her nose by using different smells and stuff. So it's like those kind of things are interesting, and they are like hopeful messaging to, I don't know, like repatterning something that is, like you said, something that developed in childhood that is, at some point a pattern may have been sort of like a life raft where eventually you're just alone because it made you feel safe at some point, but now it's keeping you away from living life. It's keeping you away from like landing on the beach and then getting out of the life raft.
Yeah, like The Office carried me through a lot of hangovers.
Yeah.
And
It's like red letter media for me.
Yeah. What? Redheaded media?
Red letter media.
Oh.
Do you see it? Like, yeah, Half in the Bag.
I haven't seen that, no.
Oh man. Yeah, those are hangover. It's like ibuprofen for a hangover.
Yeah, I've thrown up while watching an Office episode, like to that like thousands of times. It was my go-to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's, I want to be choice with my words because it's really it's kind of just imperative to start noticing, becoming aware of your own patterns to start repatterning, which is almost like the hardest part. Mm-hmm. Repatterning is difficult unto itself, but actually becoming aware of your patterns, like a lot of times it just hurts because you have to confront yourself and go, oh man, is that why I do that? Or man, I've been doing that for 30 years.
Yeah. Maybe I'm the asshole.
Yeah. I thought that I was the protagonist of this movie, but it turns out that I'm like the George Costanza sociopath that has been ruining my life for 20 years. I had no idea. I thought that I was the hero, but I'm the villain of everybody's story, including my own.
Yeah.
That sucks. That sucks. That's, Lord have mercy on me, a sinner. But man, that like when you get to that point, it really is, you got like two choices of I don't know, like stay in the life raft because it's easier just to stay the villain as an ignorant or it's like what's that Shutter Island? Like do you go the route of allowing yourself to die by being more ignorant of your own problems, or do you realize that you are the problem to then work on it? You know, do you like you said, do you go back to the shadows of the bar so that you can just exit quietly? Or do you, you know, I guess leave the bar? I don't know how the analogy works, but like, how, you know, you really do have two choices: become aware of your problems and work on them, or become aware or not become aware of your problems and stay the problem.
Yeah, that's the hard part, is becoming aware. That's where having support helps, which is like other people who are either on the same journey with you or someone who's with you. Because, you know, that kind of thing doesn't happen in a vacuum, which I learned. I learned that firsthand. I mean, first like 3 years of sobriety, I was basically the only one that I knew that was sober. And then like everyone around me just like had no interest in my journey or what I was going through or anything like that. And so it was really hard for me to be like, to be able to like find out like, oh, was that because of alcohol or was that because of me, or who am I now? And am I the asshole? And then I had a lot of people in my life who were taking advantage of that sort of chaotic thinking. And so it's good to find, it's good. What was that? Did you just really, you're like, oh God.
Yeah. I mean, I just had like flashbacks to like, oh, those 2, 3, the like year 2 and year 3 of my sobriety, I was absolutely taken advantage of, and my life was destroyed even more because I was just so naive.
Oh man, same. I mean, all the way up until like year 5, I was still like dealing with these people who just had no interest in my own recovery journey. And it was always told to me that it was like something that it was my own thing. But what I really needed was someone to be like, hey, you get kind of pissy in the mornings. Or when I bring up these certain things, it seems like you're mad, but it also seems like you're more mad at yourself. And like, that's when you're like, oh shit, I am mad at myself. Because I didn't realize that. I didn't realize I was mad at myself. But now I have this outside perspective that can help, which is great for therapy. Like a therapist could do that, but it's also good to have other people, you know?
Well, it helps to have people that like understand and give you that grace to go, hey, you know, like they won't take it so personally that you're pissy in the morning. They'll just be able to tell you, hey, you're kind of pissy in the morning. I don't know about that. Like, do you need coffee or something? Or maybe you just need to be alone for an hour or so.
Yeah. As long as pissy isn't like bringing up like all of their biggest insecurities. Like as long as you're not like, hey, you keep calling me a big fat turd every morning. And I can't, but if you're just like a little snappy, then like it's a good, it's a good time to reflect.
The thing that you were making me think of is, you know, and that way keep coming back to this, but when you drink for a long time, you don't really ever, you just get into the pattern of drinking. You don't get in the pattern of confronting anything. You're just like drinking, hangover. And so there's no time for reflection. You're just constantly like barreling forward in this chaotic way.
Yeah.
But then, you know, I guess like, what is this, year 4 for me, where I'm finally sitting down and going, wait a minute. I think I was kind of a dick since I was like 12. Like, I mean, you know, like,
great.
What?
You were great. I was the dick. You were great.
But like the thing is, like, when you're drinking, you so much are the hero in your own mind. Like everybody else is the problem, and you are you're, I don't know, beyond it, or like someone was like, I don't know, like it's different for everybody, but I think just noticing small things where you go, man, I was kind of crappy, this time 5 years ago, and I'm seeing it come back, and I'm having to really get into it and go, oh, that's probably because, and that's because I'm like not a fan of my mom, or like, I really wish that someone had treated me A, B, or C when I was 1, 2, and 3, but instead they didn't. And having to repattern that kind of stuff is like climbing a mountain.
Yeah.
And that's the stuff that, like, when you really get deep into it, because, smiling in the morning is one thing, but getting into your childhood trauma before you're even like cognizant, like, oh, someone yelled at you when you were 1, someone like, there was like abuse happening in your household when you were like 2, you can't, like, how do you even work through that,
Well, yeah, but it's also like, how do you climb a mountain? It only takes 12 steps, maybe. No, it takes more than that. But it's just a little bit at a time. It's like a practice, like anything and everything, even like a state of mind. It's a practice, and it takes time. It takes time and it takes effort. And the effort is really exhausting, especially when you've just been barreling through life. Like the way you described it as barreling, I have come to the realization that I have just been sort of like surviving one moment after the other. And then at the end of that moment, I'm like, okay, that one's done. I can dump all of that stuff and then like just get to the next thing. And I retained nothing, absolutely nothing. And so I've been realizing now that, especially because of my new lamotrigine, that most people around me, especially people who are have like a higher EQ than I do, emotional intelligence, have this sort of consistent through line of moments. Oh. And so it's not just like,
I wonder what
okay, I got to wake up. I got to get done with I got to get something greasy in me so my hangover's over. And then I got to go to work. And then I got to get through work. And then once I'm done with work, then I got to get through the evening by drinking. Or like, even when I was sober, it's like, okay, now I got to get through this meeting without drinking. Okay, now I got to get through this social engagement without drinking. It's been like this consistent, like, oh, I'm just living. And these other things are part of that. And they all build up on each other. And the way that I always saw my life a little episodic, like The Office. Like if I went into a room, like if I go to the gym, that's a different episode, like right when I walk in. But I'm not realizing what I'm carrying with me when I walk in and how that affects the people around me and how they're interacting with me. Because they can see it when in my head, I've compartmentalized it. And so one of the first practices that I instituted to kind of like help me stop disassociating and stop carrying around all of this weight and anger is I've been trying to be more aware of how I enter a room and how I feel and how I'm projecting and how, like, if I'm smiling or if I'm looking people in the eye or if I'm looking down, and seeing what I'm carrying with me, or am I doing that thing where I'm like, okay, here I go. And I like try to like psych myself up to get the performance ready. If I like things like that. And it's really helped me with this small practice of being more present and having that through line in my day to day. So walking through that door doesn't change the episode because there's no episode. It's just life. And that, I think, is like repatterning, because I in many ways, that's why I learned. I was a latchkey kid. So I learned life episode at a time, and I survived, like you were saying, like these young traumas simply by disassociating through TV, and by putting on my performance and like sort of disregarding my own emotional luggage, I guess, and like my own emotional needs, so that I could just survive until the next moment. But those things sort of built up, and now I'm trying to like sort through my basement of crap and trying to make something out of it, and trying to see what I need to like donate, what I need to trash, and what I need to keep. And a lot of that is just like going down there with a hose and spraying off the shit. But that takes practice.
I've been recently trying to practice
of shit spraying. That's what I think I'm going to name the episode that.
What?
The practice of shit spraying. Spray that shit.
I have recently been trying a practice where I am, when I have like interpersonal conflict, it doesn't happen immediately. This is the practice. The practice needs to be a cultivation of, it needs to come quicker. But trying to get to the point where I'm going, okay, wait a minute. I'm the source of the tension here. Regardless of whether or not that's like completely accurate. Because I have a tendency of getting into my head and just spinning all of it out of control, out of proportion, making up new things, making up like past, present, and future argumentation, scenes, episodes, all of this other stuff. And so instead, I've been trying to work on, okay, how am I at fault in regards to if I look back and go, man, that person treated me like absolute nothing. That sucked. But, not to be mad at myself, because there needs to be some grace. Otherwise, it's just despair and it's just too much egocentric thinking. But I let them do that.
Yeah. And then you have to figure out why.
Yeah. And so in terms of like, my relationship with my fiance, if like we don't really have disagreements, but I get overly sensitive about stuff because I had a childhood where people yelled at me for no reason a lot. And so now I have to kind of like, if no one's even raised their voice and I still get like, oh, ow. But I have to like take a step back and go, you know what? Right now, no one has to be at fault, because no one is at fault, because that's not how we're going to solve this problem that we're having. What will solve this problem is me being able to go, I am being sensitive because I have a lot of baggage that has nothing to do with this current situation. And I am dealing with wounds and hurt that have nothing to do with this person in front of me who loves me and and so trying to find a way to pull myself out of self-oriented thinking, which is based on wounding, based on patterns that I'm just used to, where I'm going like, okay, if I get into a disagreement with my girlfriend, that usually means she's about to say something that's going to be just down deep hurtful. But that doesn't come. And so, you're like, the pattern is I get guarded up for something that I'm ready for, but then it doesn't happen. And so I go, well, wait a minute. Now I have to play it in my head and go, no, she's about to say something, or she really means this, or like, but that's not reality. So the pattern is actually stepping into reality and not disassociating by like biased thinking. or just by familiarized patterns that we've been in, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, that's what a pattern is. Familiar. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But I guess like it's so
expecting, you're like expecting and then they deliver a different result. Yeah. I mean,
yeah. But you're still protecting yourself in such a way that like keeps you guarded from reality. Like you're not participating in life because you're protecting yourself against something that's not real. But it has been. So there's like this weird balance of, okay, I need to check in with myself and validate this feeling, but I also need to not bring that into this conversation because that's not fair to anybody. And so, yeah, the practice is just like, this may sound extreme, but it's like self-condemnation in a way where if
self-condemnation,
condemnation, yeah.
Condemnation. Cool. Condemnation,
yeah.
Okay, like prophylactic nation.
Yeah. Like yeah.
Okay, the nation of condoms.
Yeah, nation of safe sex.
Yeah,
self
ribbed for their pleasure. The secretary of ribbed for his pleasure. There you go. There you go. President Latex.
But you know, when something comes up and I feel like I'm having
Vice President lubricated.
No. Okay. When I feel like I'm having a reaction to something, I do have to step in and go, dude, you're messing this up right now. Like
excellent foreign policy. Okay, go ahead. Sorry. This is dumb joke. Condemnation.
People, if people are watching on YouTube, that last face that I just made when Jody made that joke, that's how I usually looked when I was watching him on stage, where I'm just going, Jody, you're like, do the jokes that you told me you want to do. Don't do the jokes that you're tired of.
Yeah. I got a lot of reactions that were just like, that was mostly my
like a lot of sucking reaction. In their teeth.
When's this gonna be?
I was in the back in the shadows of the bar just going, we got to make it to the next mic. He's better than this. Let's go.
Yeah, when you have the audience giving you the light, that's when you know it's a problem.
But I think that there needs to be some element, maybe not for everybody, but just realizing that our problems are kind of perpetuated by our own thinking. And so when we're familiar with patterns in our brain, even if they don't come, we're still in this weird mental state where we're expecting them to come. And when they don't come, we almost have to like project them into our reality by just thinking of them and dwelling and contemplating and running these images over and over and over again. And so the self judgment comes into it, where condemnation is a better word for it, but just like saying to yourself, look, you have the ability to allow this situation to be real, or you have the ability to allow this situation to be a figment of your own imagination, which is going to drive you crazy. And if there's tension here, it's not to say that the other party isn't carrying tension with them too, but what tension are you bringing into this conversation that you're not even aware of, that is severing your connection from talking with this person?
Yeah. I think that's also part of that pattern, right? There's also, that's sort of there's also the pattern of walking away. Like I feel like sometimes I in my past, I have been locked in these nonsensical fights and these like nonsensical arguments. And then I look back on it and I'm like, why the fuck didn't I just leave? I had all the abilities to do it. And it's just because that was not an option when I was a kid. You just participated in it. So it's like the question to participate in that tension is always, every moment is a new opportunity to stop participating and choosing another option. And that takes awareness and that takes practice, right? To be able to spot those moments to participate and being able to implement the change that's needed. You know,
it's the superpower of sobriety, by the way. Like, sobriety allows you the freedom to leave.
Yeah.
Like when
you're not too drunk to drive, you could just
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can walk home safely. You can, yeah, it really does. Because you have that reliance and that trust within yourself, which is also something that, like, I think that you're touching on is that takes practice, that is also repatterning. Because I feel like a lot of my drinking, I lost that sense of trust within my own decision making, within my own self, and being able to recognize the good decisions I've made versus the bad decisions I've made and how I made them. Like basically doing a post-mortem on your like your life. Like picking up jujitsu, best decision I've ever made. I mean, even picking up stand-up was a really great decision for me. Quitting drinking was an active decision. What factors led into that for me to do that? And it was, a lot of it was rooted in this like nascent sense of survival and feeding what I want, and being able to recognize, it took me a long time to be able to recognize why I made those decisions, those good decisions. And in the same way that I recognize why I made those bad decisions. Like there are qualities that are intrinsic to a person that are always there. I mean, even if, especially if you're sober. I mean, we're all here because we have this need to do more than survive. I mean, to survive first off, but also to do more than to survive, to like reach whatever goal that we want. We had bigger beliefs for ourselves and our future. And there are things that got in the way, and addiction kicked in as a way to kind of continue those things. But if you already chose sobriety, you're already repatterning. You're already making the first steps to making those healthier decisions. And it's trying to like do a post-mortem around that one decision, find out the why behind that decision, and then applying it to all of your decisions, right? Because the way you do one thing is how you do all things. And so trying to practice that discipline that it requires to repattern all of your decisions to get there. I mean, you can't just quit drinking. I mean, we did, but it was super dangerous and we could have died. But you know, you gotta, like, it takes time. It takes, like, a lot of people go to rehab. They use like medications, or they'll do like a weaning process. That's the same way. Like, you also didn't just wake up an alcoholic. That took time too. Like, you learned how to drink, you have to unlearn it, but you also have to learn how to be sober at the same time. And that, I think, applies, you know, the sobriety is a fractal. I always like to say that, where if drinking is this manifestation of self-destruction, then there are other ways in which that self-destruction emanates into the lifestyle, the choices, things like that. But sobriety is this manifestation of self-preservation. Then that can also, through mindfulness and through repatterning and through this practice, emanate into all of these decisions. You know, if you go off camera, no one on YouTube is going to be able to see that beautiful mug of yours, and it just makes it weird, like I'm talking to myself. Oh my God. You're on mute now.
Sorry, I had to turn on the light. I'm sorry. I was listening. I was right here.
I'm just concerned about the production quality for our 2 YouTube viewers and the people who watch this while on Spotify on their little phones.
Too late for you to be concerned about the production quality. I think that it looks fine.
It's going to look like I'm just talking to an emotional ghost in a room. A manifestation of my comedy days. Don't think about it too hard. Don't think about it too hard. That one really confused you. I just left a confused ghost in your room.
I didn't mean to. I was trying to do it so quickly to not spoil your soliloquy.
I was in such a role. I was on such a roll.
I know, but you chose to stick.
I had to. If I don't bring it up, it's weird for everyone else. If I don't talk about it,
no. See, I don't think so. I think that this is like this is the remnant of your comedy. Like Jody's on stage, he's killing. One thing happens in the bar, and he has to like totally orient toward whatever happened, and then everybody's going, what joke were you doing? And now you're talking about something that only like 3 people saw in the whole room, and everybody's like,
I've never done that. That was something I struggled with. I only just did the same jokes that I always did. I never could go fly off the cuff.
I'll hear Tim Miller bring up Jody, and I'll just walk to the bag, start a cigarette, and I'll go, Bradford Pears, fire crotch. I just walk through your whole set.
First off, I started with my fire crotch joke because it helped me not be so nervous.
I know. And it was good. It's a good joke.
Bradford Pears was a medium joke.
I thought it was classic Jody joke.
It really relies on everyone in the audience knowing what Bradford pears are. I learned that when I came to Chicago, where Bradford pears aren't like super popular like they are down south. And I tried to do that joke, and I was like, "You guys know what Bradford pears are?" And the audience was like, "No." And I was like, "Well, all right. Well, next joke then, I guess." I guess I can move on.
Well, in Trump's America, Bradford pears are going to be everywhere. Start doing your jokes everywhere. It'll be great.
Can't wait. The Southern Fried America.
The Southern Fried America tour. Jody Buffkin.
I should tell the joke for our audience. So
yeah, why don't you go ahead and tell the joke?
All right. Well, you guys know Bradford pears, right? They're the trees that smell like cum. You know why they smell like cum? It's me. I've been coming on all the trees. That's the joke.
It's good. That's a joke that like kills at a Sweetwater Bar and Grill.
Yeah, you know? They did do pretty well.
You did well at Sweetwater Bar and Grill.
My joke did really well at underground DIY shows where like house shows. That was my audience. Drunk and stoned underage teenagers. Like
loved it.
That was my audience. They loved it. Did you ever
do the shows where like the comic would host like the music? You would go up and do comedy and then introduce the first band and then go in between the bands while they set up. Did you ever do that?
No, I saw Sam Severin do that for the Coat Hangers and I think those Darlings, but yeah, for the Coat Hangers.
That's cool. I did it at like house shows where people did not enjoy any of it. So that's good for Sam.
Oh yeah. Well, Sam's great.
Sam's great. Yeah. Yeah, there was this one. I think Matt Peschney was the last one to do it because I got brought in to do a host set at the first house show. They hated it.
We're just talking about ghosts. These are just the name of comedy.
This is ghosts. This is what we're repatterning.
Yeah, we're repatterning, talking about stand-up on our podcast about sobriety. It's a stand-up podcast about sobriety, or a sobriety podcast about stand-up.
We'll clip this.
It's a comedy. It's a comedy.
You know, I came into this podcast hot, ready to talk about how much I want to just disappear. So this is.
You did. Yeah. And now how do you feel? Do you want to, now you feel like now you're talking about comedy because you want to get back on stage. You're like,
no, I think like this,
again. You got the itch again.
I was talking to a buddy of mine who does music and stuff. And, you know, he's like super into it. Like this is what he wants to do. He wants to make it big. I don't know what that exactly means for him, but it means something. Like he wants this to be his career. And he was talking to me about quitting stand-up, and like he was asking, you know, do you want to ever do it again? And I was thinking like, no, man, what? There's no way I want to do that again. My life is so much more fulfilling if I make my fiance laugh. Or
just one second. Make it big is the campaign slogan for President Lubricated. In the condemnation, he ran on that, and he won that election in a landslide.
It was a slippery landslide.
Ooh. Yeah, it was him against the elitist sheepskins.
Like,
yeah.
See, this is more fulfilling than going on stage and making 5 people laugh at a bar, or even like, you know, even doing like Epic. Like this, it's way better. This is way better. Making like an actual connection with people by making, you know, goof 'em ups. It's more fulfilling. It's more fulfilling not to be known. It's more fulfilling not to have an audience. It's more fulfilling not to be performative. It feels better to not have to program my brain into having like inputting information so that I can produce content for people who don't care. You know what I mean?
I think this is a podcast that I'd love for it to get more audience members, because then we could maybe help more people.
I'm saying that, like, I think creativity is good, but if creativity is like the sole drive behind creativity is ego, to just be known.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
That's where it's all about your message, which is why Make It Big worked, is because people really in the condemnation related to that message. You know, where if it was just like something, you know, about sheepskin, which I think was just like natural, that's more about the actual product, right? That's actually about Professor Sheepskin, who was running against President Lubricated, right? So what you're talking about is ego versus a message that can help other people, which is why I started this podcast. The intention is to help people using comedy as a frame to approach sobriety, because so many sobriety podcasts are just terrible, and they kind of are condescending and are like, a lot of them have too much of like the whole tone of sobriety is like, you can do this if you believe, if you love yourself, and it's just like, nah, man. Like,
those are the comedy podcasts?
No, that's a sobriety podcast. And it's like, I just remember when I first got sober, I was like, I don't want to be talked to like that. I want to talk about how I keep pooping. And
yeah. I don't want the sobriety podcasts have this like Rhonda Byrne feel, or some kind of like self-help, like if you think it, you can sober it or whatever. Like this is so not. It's not interesting. One, it's not helpful.
It's not just recovery. It's recover me. All right.
Oh. That's like when people say, like, you know, it's not a religion, it's a relationship. And you go, what are you talking? No. Okay. Stop that. I think that it's better for you to be honest with people. Like, this is that performative v authentic aspect where I don't want to listen to a podcast where people are going, you can do it, keep drinking water and keep running on the race, or whatever the analogy is this week. Like, no, most of us are crawling, and sometimes someone says something to me in a tone that makes me think of something that happened 5 years ago, and it ruins the week for me.
Yeah.
And I think that it's that's important to talk about, because
Yeah.
no matter, like, I'm sober.
What do you mean you're just fine? What do you mean? What do you mean you're just fine? Yeah.
Yeah, it's that, like, being sober has ruined my, like, because when I was drinking and someone acted like kind of fake to me or like whatever, I could just go like, dude, what do you want? Like, let's not do this. I don't want to do this with you. Do you want a cigarette? Get out of here. Do you want to book? Do you want to do my show? I'll book you, like, whenever you want, like, whatever. Get out of here. But now I'm sober, and people are not actually doing that in real life. Like, I'm not talking to comedians all the time. So when people say stuff that makes me think that I'm talking to someone who wants something from me, I have to, like, check myself and go, wait a minute. Oh, that's not what's happening right now.
Is it when they're like, what do you mean book me? What is that? What are you? It
is weird that they let me, like, rant at them, and then they say, no, I don't want, do you want to sign up to do, like, the church fellowship this weekend? Like, I don't. But, like, it's a weird pattern that you get into by being in those kind of performance oriented environments, where when you get out of them, there's this, like, people who talk to you, you almost have, like, I don't know, you have to actually ground and say, no, this person is actually talking to me like a human being. I've just never talked to another human being before, and that's why I'm having a difficult time. Yeah.
And that takes repatterning, that takes awareness. And that's our episode.
So keep running, everybody. You can do it.
Yeah.
If you think you can be sober, you already are. And if you don't mind buying our Patreon or whatever, I don't know the sobriety podcasts, what they have, but you can buy my new book. It's called The Secret.
Don't be a sob. Be sober. It's more than a sob, because it has the at the end.
Yours feel real, like you've heard that.
I just do this kind of shit for a living, so it kind of comes natural.
Oh yeah, this is fun. This is a good dichotomy that we have, because I talk to no one, and you, like, your whole job is about communicating to people. So
yeah. Open yourself, not the bottle.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Yeah. Okay. Let's stop. I don't.
All right. Well, stop. Stop what you're doing, because you're about to ruin.
Thanks for listening. Keep fighting the good fight.
Yeah. Axios, baby.
It's weird because we have our own thing, and then we were just talking about it.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, ours